Howdy and welcome back to the workshop. In today's episode, we're going to be fixing machines so that I can fix a machine. It's a problem that I have. Help me. Let's interrupt really quick to talk about today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is a website building platform that just so happens to be easy enough to use that even I was able to build a website there. I first found Squarespace about probably 4 years ago or so when Alex Steele, who you guys probably know, had an episode sponsored by Squarespace, and I was like, that seems pretty neat. Let me check it out. I was blown away that I was able to build a website that not only looked good, but also functioned and was informative and could process payments and showcase my social media, my portfolio of work, and all of those other fun things. And since then, they've added a ton of new features to their platform that are also still easy to use. They now have the Squarespace member areas, which is a place where you can have a private community where you can generate revenue, you can connect with just the people in that community, and you can share ideas, you can talk with them, you can send out emails, you can track all of the insights for all of that, which is super, super, super cool that you don't have to do another platform. And if you're not just an online business and you do go out and about and you are selling things at fairs, or maybe you even have a store and you're far more grown up than I am, they have a point of sale system that also interacts with your website and makes it so that it's easy to track your inventory both online and in person. And then they've got tons of website designs that make it nice and easy to build a beautiful online space that will connect with your audience, which is something that I cannot stress enough, I really needed. Not just the website, I needed that, but I needed something that was going to be easy to use and easy to keep track of, because here's the deal. And I've talked about this in the past, and it's honestly a little bit embarrassing how bad I am at using computers. I'm 22 years old, my father is 60 now, and he shows me how to do things on my laptop. That's not a joke, it is embarrassing. But I was able to build a nice website on Squarespace anyway, despite the fact that I'm legitimately tech illiterate. So if you've got a hobby or a small business and you need a place to professionally showcase your work, track inventory, make sales, and do all of that other fun stuff, head over to squarespace.com/Will Stelter for a free trial, and when you're ready, 10% off your first purchase. Thank you so much, Squarespace, for sponsoring today's episode. Let's jump back in. So one of the big projects that I've had in the last year is last January I went and picked up the Beaudry number 11 power hammer. This thing is huge and it needed a complete rebuild. Now, thankfully I had all the tools to do that. They just haven't been running because they themselves need a little bit of work. Mostly electrical stuff, some mechanical things. The big things that we've got are we need the milling machine to be running so we can mill down the dies of the power hammer, and we need the lathe to be running so that we can mill down a sleeve that fits inside one of the big pulleys to drive the whole thing. Let's go talk about the mill. Now, there's this fun thing that we deal with in the YouTube world called corrupted footage. And that is what happened to the first 3 or 4 things that I did to the mill to get it running. So the way that a milling machine holds things is that you've got your shank on your collet or on your cutter, and that sits up inside the quill here, and so that'll index in here like so. And you can see it's got a slight taper right here, and so that means that when you push it up there and you thread it into this drawbar, this is the piece that allows you to tighten it down, and that sits inside the whole head up here. And the male threading on there fits into the female threading in the collet or cutter. And then you throw it up there, you tighten it up here. So, as you can imagine, there are a couple things that need to be right in there to make all of that whole operation work. One of those things is that the set screw that sits inside here, that fits inside this channel, needs to be there, in my opinion. Some people don't like it. But what happens is if you don't have a set screw in there to lock into this channel, is that as you're trying to tighten it, this thing can just spin around forever and forever, and it is wicked annoying. So I had to replace that in this machine, and I filmed the whole thing, and then the footage got corrupted and is now unreadable. But the way that you do that is you take off a couple pieces here and you finagle it out, and then you use some Allen keys and wrenches and whatnot and get it slapped back together, and now it works. The other thing that I had to do was buy a new drawbar for the machine. The first one that I bought, the threaded portion on it was too long, which means that rather than threading for maybe a ½ inch or so, I was setting for almost a full inch. And so I would put the collet in there and then start threading, and I would have to hand thread it up a full inch, which took forever. And so I bought a new drawbar, works way better now. That's cool. The third thing that I did that I filmed that also got corrupted was making these T-slot table covers. Now these things are super cool. I took some 11 1/4 inch wide, 5/8 inch thick canvas micarta, and all I did was rip it down on the bandsaw. I then took a piece off of the side that I had ripped down and I thinned it down again on the bandsaw. And then I drilled and tapped into the top and held it in there secure so that now these boards sit right here and they protect my table from getting all covered up in chips and whatnot, which is icky and not fun. It also protects it from getting dings and divots taken out of it, and it means that when I'm moving things around, I don't have to be quite as careful. I can throw the table on there, throw the wrench on there, drop the cutter on there, and I don't have to worry about it. This is also a really good material for that because it's impact resistant, it's oil resistant, and so it's not going to get full up of cutting fluid or oil or whatever. It'll stand the test of time quite well. The other thing that I did, which is quite obvious, is that I drilled a hole in each corner, and I took these $20 Home Depot lamps and threw them in there, which means that I've got a lot of adjustability of where those lamps sit and which angle they face and whatnot. And these have been super, super nice to shed some light on the whole milling situation. Thank you, Marty. The next order of business is you get the oiler attached to the machine and running. Now, I was awfully intimidated about the whole oiler, oil line setup process because I'd never done anything like that before. I had no idea how challenging it was going to be. But once I got into it, figured out the parts that I needed, it ended up going pretty dang smoothly. Thankfully, the nearby Ace Hardware had just about all of the extra parts that I needed that I hadn't ordered for an H&W machine repair. So it definitely took a little getting used to getting those compression fittings to suck together, but after that, it ended up going pretty dang smoothly, and it went together without too many trips to Ace. Three or four, I think, was it. I think that should have done it. I've got oil lines running to each of the 3 couplings that were sticking out. This leads to a row of couplings up here that oils the whole table assembly up there. And so I need to add oil into this sucker, some Mobile Vactra number 2 whey oil. And then every time I do that, it'll oil the whole system. Getting oil to drip out in some places. Perfect. Now, another thing about the electronics on this machine is that this is a 3-phase milling machine, which means that it has 3 hot legs of electricity coming in and 1 ground wire. And so in order to be able to run that off of single phase, you need to do something to it to convert it from single phase to 3-phase. I had a rotary phase converter hooked up for a long time. I only ever ran the mill on that for a very, very short period of time. Last night, my electrician came in here and he threw in a digital phase shifter, which is a very cool, small, quiet, easy to use box that you just kind of plug in and it turns it into 3-phase, which is great. Because it means that now, rather than having to turn on the rotary phase converter and having that just go in the background the whole time, when I'm not using the machine, it's dead quiet. And when I do want to use it, I don't have to turn on anything else. All I have to do is that. Another fun thing is that whoever wired this thing up before did it in such a way that forwards was backwards and backwards was forwards. And rather than fixing it, what they did is they just relabeled it. And so I had to scrape off those labels so that now it runs in the correct directions. And that's fun. Another fun little bit of footage that got corrupted was the actual first project on the mill using the milling portion of it. I've drilled holes with it before, but this was the first using the cutter, going around doing things for something real. And that real thing was the block of steel that holds the quick change tool post holder of my lathe into the carriage cross slide, whatever the lathe thing that goes back and forth is. I don't know what it is. And basically they sent me a big old block of steel and I needed to mill it down to make it fit, as well as mill some shoulders into it so that it would suck up into the thing. So as I was standing here, finishing up this last cut on the first side, I thought, you know what? I actually have a machine that's made for cutting off large slabs of steel. It's a bandsaw. So for the next one, I'll flip it over and I'll slab off, I don't know, like little under 3/8 of an inch, and then we'll do a finish pass on the mill to get it totally dialed in. But that should take way less time. There we go. I did a quick math, and it looks like we want to take 0.295 thousandths of an inch in from either side, and we want to go down about a 1/2 inch. Should go relatively quickly with this setup. Hopefully I don't mess anything up. Well, we'll see. Uh-oh, I had it in reverse. Well, that should be it. I misjudged. I did my math poorly. Actually, I did my thinking poorly. And I went down about 30 thousandths of an inch too deep so that the top of this would have been hitting the bottom of the tool post holder and not clamping in the way that it should have been. But should be correct now. Wow. Those chips just like to get everywhere, don't they? Well, moment of truth. Hey-o. Oh, that should work perfectly. All right, so the way this works is this drops through there, finds its place. There we go. Bam. And now, big wrench. Look at that. Oh, well, I'll have to tighten that up. But it's not my machine, it's not my machining works problem that there's play. But, heck, look at that. It works. Now I will be able to easily swap in and out. Tools, nice. So the next thing I'm going to do to fix this machine is to throw this little ruler right here so we can see how far down the quill is going. That won't be very challenging, hopefully. Okay, we're going to move these holes over a little bit. I'll just probably do that with a hand file just to give this a tiny, tiny bit more clearance. Well, the mill is now ready. It's ready to rock and roll. It's working. We've got oil in the ways. We've got oil in the head. It's not going to trip itself off when I'm using it now. We've got a ruler right here. Got a drawbar that works even. Amazing. This thing is 100% ready, but the machining area here is still missing something, and that is a machinist's vise, or a bench vise, if you will. I don't want to put something in the middle, so I think what I'm going to do is devise an attachment that can sit up against that wall, anchor into a stud and come out a little bit. I've got just the vise for the job, believe it or not. It's the Holland's 14. It's kind of a smaller bench vise, very sturdy, very, very cool vise. This was actually the first real vise I ever bought. I bought it when I was 16 years old for $70 at a blacksmith swap meet. And I'm excited to have it in this corner. I think it's going to sit right there underneath the window with a micarta table and some steel supports underneath it. So let's get to drawing. So thank you guys so much for following along on today's episode. I gotta say, that thing's pretty sweet. I'm excited to get to use it for real projects here coming up. You know what they say, when there's a mill, there's a way. They don't actually say that. They say that with my name instead, but you know. A couple announcements before we end it. First off, I'm wearing a shirt that's mocking myself right now. It's the Pallet Jack Gang shirt, which is now up for sale on my Squarespace website. On the back it says 0 days since last accident. If you don't know what that's in reference to, it was this.
Oh! Shit! No!
The time that I dropped a rather expensive piece of machinery off of a pallet jack. Still haven't financially recovered from it, but here's the deal. I did get the Beaudry because of that stupid mistake that I made. So if you're interested in mocking me as well, go buy this shirt or don't. Up to you. So stay tuned for a little bit of work on the Beaudry, some work on the lathe. We've got all sorts of fun machinery projects coming up. Here's the deal. This isn't supposed to be a machinery channel. I was like, oh, I'll do YouTube of making fun projects. And then I've spent a literal whole year just working on machines. Who knew that was even possible? Not me, but what a great time. I also have another video coming up soon, which will be quite spicy. That means something else now, never mind. Thank you so much to our patrons for patronizing me, and thank you Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. I will catch you on the next one, wherein we'll work on the Beaudry. See you guys later.